Hey, Kua.
Hey, girl.
Welcome back to a new week of Black Gym Dive In.
Black Gems Dive In podcast. What episode is this?
We never know. We just be talking. So
we never know. It's the new episode.
It's a new episode. We just get excited to come every week, just have these discussions, these honest, candid discussions.
How was your week? Or how is your week going?
It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday. Great. It's been a great week. You know, we're still in the middle of Black History Month, still celebrating.
Right. It's a short month.
Shout out Black History Month, baby.
Right.
It's a short month. So we gotta get as much in as possible.
Exactly. Absolutely. But like I always say, Black history is American history, so it does not have to be just in February.
True.
So
true that.
Yeah. But so today we're excited because we have two guests.
I think this is the first time. No, this isn't the first time.
I don't know. I can't
Maybe
remember.
It's the second time.
Maybe the second time, yes. But we have two guests.
Two guests.
Yes.
Welcome, y'all.
Welcome.
We're excited to have
y'all. Having us.
Excited to have y'all.
So, quick introduction. I'm going to let y'all introduce yourselves actually first. So, I'm going to start with they're both my brothers, but my blood brother, Derek. I'm going to let you start and introduce yourself a little bit to the people.
Okay. My name is Derek Brim. I'm a electrical engineer. Also, I have a little history playing football, which will be the topic today.
Yes.
I played at UB, graduated UB 2014. From there, I signed with the Buffalo Bills. Shout out to the hometown. So played there. Then went back into some engineering for a little bit, and then I went on different endeavors. I went to Green Bay, played in the indoor league and arena league there. Different type of experience. Had some fun doing that, and then came back home. Right now I'm with National Fuel, working there in their engineering department.
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
Yes, sir.
Welcome on the show.
Yes.
Welcome on the show. Thanks for coming.
Then we got Adam.
Yep,
on,
other
Adam.
bro.
My
So
other
Adam
bro.
Redden. Yep, Buffalo native. Went to school, St. Francis. Played at UB with this guy here. Then took my endeavors to New Orleans for the Saints, Saskatchewan the CFL, GFL with Germany, and then came home, working in the medical field, doing surgeries, and then now I'm here. So let's talk.
Awesome.
I love it.
Awesome.
Come on now.
Concise.
Come on.
I like this.
But I
like
love
this.
it. And I love the journey too. I feel
Right.
like another podcast could talk about life after sports.
Oh boy, that'd be a
That's-
mean
that
one.
would be a good one.
What does that look like?
Absolutely.
Shout
out your book.
Hello. Hello.
Shout out your book.
That's another podcast.
That's another podcast
but
for
yes,
sure.
that'll be coming
Go buy
out
the
in
book.
April. So
April.
Okay.
April.
Official dates are out.
coming soon.
Coming soon.
Congrats.
Yes.
Congrats.
Thank you.
So we dive right in to the topic. We're actually going to do a hot topic first and just chat a little bit about that, and then we'll get into the conversation. Y'all already know we talking about football today.
Yes.
Talking about football. And honestly, last week's episode, we started to touch on this whole concept of who is deemed qualified and the privilege of being deemed qualified. And I think that honestly leads us into the conversation today. So we actually have an article from NPR, and it is why a 20-year effort by the NFL hasn't led to more minorities in top coaching jobs. And so y'all know we've been talking about this. I mean, it's a lot of conversation that's been happening in the community, but it talks about how 2 decades ago, the league knew that there needed to be something done around minority coaches being head coaches in the NFL. So the Pittsburgh Steelers then, we know it as the Rooney Rule, but Dan Rooney was the team's owner and trailblazer for diversity in the league. So the NFL they adopted this policy, and it basically sought to increase minority head coaches and, minority candidates to be interviewed for head coaching positions.
Right.
And so there's a lot of conversation happening around that now. Does it work? Is it working? We know that there was one black head coach, Mike Tomlin for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then just recently, who was that? We just said his
Houston
name.
Texans. Just hired
Lovie Smith.
Lovie
Thank
Smith.
you, Jamil. Lovie Smith was just hired for the Houston Texans. So there's 2 out of 32
franchises,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
32 teams. So what do y'all think about that?
Want me to go first?
Go ahead.
Of course I will. Yeah. All right. So fundamentally, there's an issue there because the fact that you have to imbue a rule to get African American coaches on board, or even to what they say the par level is a problem fundamentally.
Yeah.
And it's comes from a deeper place within just their inner matrix, who they believe that they are, with the system that they constructed, and it's a multi-layer problem. And the fact that the rule is even in play is an issue.
It shows there's an issue from the jump.
Right.
So before, Belichick dropped the ball, before Coach Flores was fired or let go, there was an issue there in it beforehand.
Right.
Stated by Colin Kaepernick, Jay-Z, and it's multi-layer. So we started off with Colin, then the Jay-Z move, and then now they integrate, diversity and equity everywhere. Well, that's a problem. That's America's problem. So,
do you think that we talk about this all the time when it comes to performative work and DEI space, right? And so, obviously, with Colin Kaepernick taking a knee, there was a lot of controversy around that. Then comes Jay-Z being this representative for the NFL, and what does it look like infusing DEI? But now we see that it was pretty much performative, right? And so I think people are now questioning, really, what is the pipeline from looking at coaches going into these positions? What does that pipeline look like? Does it look different for an African-American male or female versus a white male or female? What does that look like?
I think it definitely looks a little different. Just to kind of touch on some of my thoughts about the topic in general. As far as there's a lot of, when you turn on the TV, and this is a lot of sports in general, the NBA, NFL, you see a lot of people of color that's playing out there. And, they're putting their bodies on the line. They're doing something that only, 1% of people could do. Something that takes a lot of training, a lot of hard work, and you're literally beating your body up out there. And the people that's calling the shots are people that doesn't exactly look like them in general. And, in a sense of it's kind of like playing chess, and you're the chess pieces out there, but the person's calling all the shots. It's always the same narrative. So, and that sometimes could be a subjective thing. Sometimes I think sports is more objective. You win or lose. So it's not, the favoritism kind of waters itself out because these owners want to win. Their money's on the line. They can't have a losing team. So the best man in general is going to win the job. They're going to put the best team out there. So, it has nothing to, they may not even like, it's been some owners that didn't even, with the Clippers some years ago, the owners didn't even want his girlfriend talking to the black guys. So they're just there to, hey, man, you're there to win me games and that's it. But from the side of from the other side, sometimes it can be subjective. That coach may be winning because he has good players or good people around him. He's not putting his body on the line. So I think, kind of looking forward in the pipeline, it has to be some more of a fair process going in, looking at people's resume, looking at people's character, seeing how they bring guys together, seeing how other players believe in that coach, because it could be a big thing if the players around doesn't believe in the coach. They could say something and it goes one ear out the other, if they know they're not a man of their word or whatever that is. So I think it's a lot of...
You're hitting on culture shift, right?
Yeah.
It really has to be about the culture,
yes,
and not necessarily about what that person can do, right?
Yes. To touch on what Derek said, it is chess, and it's hard to play chess when they control all pieces on the chessboard, even yours. So essentially, you are still the pawn, like in the game. They just dangle the cash in front of you to see, okay, how much are you willing to gauge me and then let me get away with?
Right.
I think that's a great point because, Derek, you had mentioned, there are these pieces and they just need to win games. Right. Now, let's kind of back this up a little bit because we didn't even really touch on the whole Brian Flores situation, right? And so a big part of this conversation is coming because there was a lawsuit that a former head coach, Brian Flores of the Miami Dolphins, came out and said, listen, something ain't right with this process, right? The whole idea about this Rooney Rule and having to have that representation there, allegedly, and I'm just going to say allegedly because, everything is still, at play right now. But Brian Flores was the head coach for Miami Dolphins. I was trying to read, he had back-to-back winning seasons in decades, right? So that was a big thing too. we
Large,
know Miami
large. Yeah,
Dolphins,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
Bills,
Bills.
you know.
Bills, yeah, so-
we got to put that out there, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
we know
for
that
sure.
Miami is usually a win, right? But so yeah, Flores, he had back-to-back wins. The season was, he did a lot better. And then he came out with this class action lawsuit against the NFL, the Dolphins, Denver Broncos, and New York Giants, because his lawsuit said and alleges that there was discrimination in his firing and in his interviews for the head coaching jobs with the other teams. So you mentioned this whole idea of they need to win.
Yeah.
He's also alleging that they bribed him to lose. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Supposedly they bribed him to lose $100K per game that he lost
So he get a
because they
bigger
wanted to
pick.
get a better,
Quote unquote.
quote,
Yeah.
better draft pick and whole
Yeah.
situation, right? So
Yeah.
there was a lot to it. I think there was also some star quarterback at that time
Yeah.
who you can imagine who that was.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of stuff that he said, look, I'm not doing that.
Right.
If I lose, they're going to fire me anyway, right?
Yeah.
So I think that also brings up a different point. You're supposed to be winning, but allegedly he's being bribed to lose.
So it goes back to the premise of the chess pieces,
Right.
Being controlled, and it's a tough and sticky situation because he just let the cat out of the bag. You know what I mean? So
Right.
that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Like, and it's very touchy. But the thing is that no one wants to relinquish power. Okay,
It's true.
Yeah.
So-
we talk about power and privilege all the time.
So what you do when you want to take away someone's power is you limit their representation. We all know that.
Yeah.
It's Black History Month. People didn't have the right to vote just 100 years ago. Women.
Less than.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
African Americans, the 3/4 rule.
Right.
So when you limit the representation, people don't have a say, and don't have a voice within this space.
Yeah.
Without that voice, without this say, how much can you really make grounds wise?
Right.
Think about that.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that speaks a lot on the integrity of the Miami Dolphins owner. In general, you're trying to make a move, but you're trying to put it on somebody else. You
True.
can't even own your own move. You're trying to say, hey, man, and at the end of the day, if he started losing those games on purpose, what's $100K to the owner? He's a billionaire.
Right.
You know,
Nothing.
you know
Nothing at
that's so. At the end of the day, what are we really talking? He's trying to, put these losses on him. When at the end of the day, you're the one that's trying to lose games. So at the end of the day, Flores, he wasn't going to sacrifice his integrity for that. I'm not going to. You have to own up to that. So it's not bad that he exposed that. And to really touch on, he did some incredible things at the end of the season. Not a lot of coaches in any professional league can win in the second half. Majority of their games. Yeah, he lost a lot of their first games. If you look at their roster, half their roster is like on injury reserve. So these guys are getting injured. His top players getting hurt. And I think one thing that
dealt a bad hand.
Yep. And I think one thing that kind of shows how good a coach is how is that coach going to deal with adversity? How is he still going to lead the team? How is he going to bring their morale up? And he won about 7 or 8 out of the last 8 or 9 games. So,
well, then let's talk about the fact that not only did he give up his job, he gave up his job, his livelihood to pay to feed his kids, to pay his bills, to make a stand. And I'm telling you now, there'll be about 3 people within the last decade or 2 that won't be forgotten. Obviously, Tom Brady, but let's talk about Colin. Let's talk about Coach Flores,
you're absolutely right.
who sacrificed, because not many people would.
And that's a great
That's the
point,
point, yeah.
because it is a sacrifice. And I mean, Colin Kaepernick did the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting. We're in this dynamic, right, where there's a lot of different things at play. We know the country that we live in. There's a lot of history we talk about all the time. But it does take these people to pioneer. You think about our civil rights.
Yes,
I mean, we talk about Black History Month.
Yeah.
So many sacrifices that had to be made in order for the larger collective to really benefit from it. And so you're seeing Kaepernick do that. Now Brian Flores is doing that. Will he get another coaching job after doing, after putting this out there? I don't know.
Tough to know. No. I don't see that happening.
Yeah.
And it's crazy the fact that you have to be palatable for you to maintain a job.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's tough.
That's a good topic too.
Yeah.
That's another
Yeah.
topic,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Come on, you may have to
Being
come back.
palatable.
Hey, look,
being palatable.
call me up. I'm free.
Listen,
But even now, there's a lot of organizations, national organizations like the National Urban League, NAACP. They've had these conversations with the NFL in the past couple of weeks about, hey, we really need to tackle this rule. What does it look like? Right. But many people are saying it's not the rule, it's the people. Right.
Yeah.
And it goes back to what you're all saying, right? You can change a rule, you can manipulate the rule, you can get rid of the rule.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's the people who are in power.
Yes.
Who have the privilege to play the games like you talked about, right? So where do you go from here, right? We talk about all the time about hiring diverse talent. What does it look like? We don't really touch about it within the sports realm, but what does it look like when you're hiring for that diverse talent, agnostic of a rule?
This can go either way here. So I agree with Jay-Z. The time to act is now. Okay, so we kneeled. Got it. After the kneeling, then we sacrificed jobs by, going forward with lawsuits. Well, at some point, we have to have the sit down. And then we have to talk about the rule. We have to talk about, okay, what makes someone qualified here?
That's the question. But that's a real question, though. What makes someone qualified for real?
And
because a lot of, you talk about, I think there's 4 teams that were hiring for head coaches this past year.
Right.
What makes someone qualified? I know some people were getting interviews just on the base of being friends with certain people.
Exactly.
I think that was was that Josh McCown or whatever?
Yep.
For the Texans, and obviously he didn't get that job.
Yes.
But I think that's a great question because you're seeing a lot of people who there's assistant head coaches that are black.
Yes.
There's offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators that are black. When you look at the league, and y'all talked about this before, a large percentage of the players have been black. So what other...
For many years.
Yes. So what other qualifications do you truly need in order to lead, leadership skills, of course, you need all this stuff, but
who better than the players who actually played the game to be the coaches?
Exactly.
And I was going to say that too. I was going to say that, it's rare that you see rare that you see the players become coaches.
Yeah.
Right? So why is that?
So why is that? Well, then it goes back to the layers again. So for us to tackle this, we have to attack you. Okay, so what is the standard? What is the so-called protocol or the guidelines to say someone is qualified? Then you have to go to the next thing, resolving the issue, which comes back to the mindset, the culture behind the culture that is controlling it. You have to strip them away of, okay, there's a lot of owners here that may share the same belief. That's not doing much here. They're just sitting back casually. Okay, well, let that play out. Well, who is going to make the stance? Say, hey, look, I agree with Flores here, even as a white coach.
Who's going to say that?
Right.
Yeah, a lot of these guys, they're trying to protect their relationships with someone else and this and that, and it may be people like you said that have a certain opinion on it, but they don't want to speak up.
Oh yeah,
because they're gonna go against the grain and mess up whatever they have going on. And like you said, a lot of players, these guys on the field, they study the game for years. Of course, they would know. But sometimes these guys, they dump them off. They may go to college first or this and that, where they could easily go into a position. It's a lot of people that actually is qualified, but it goes up to that opinionated thing. It's like I said before, you put players on the field. It's wins or losses. It's simple.
Yeah.
So, up to the point, it's a lot of people that's qualified, but now it's opinionated because at the end of the day, they're still not playing the game. They still have the same team, but they're not playing the game. So, I think that's it's controversial.
Right. And you look at so in this NPR article that we keep referring to, right, you look at NFL versus the NBA, right? And they talk about how it's 2 different cultures. So just some quick statistics. They have said in both leagues, so both the NFL and NBA, it's about 70% players who are black. But the NFL's one African-American head coach, and this is earlier this month, of course, represents barely 3% of those top slots. The NBA this season has 13 black head coaches spread among 30 teams, or 43%, right? So people say, well, how is that possible? Here they go back to David Stern, who's the NBA commissioner, right? And he set that culture, and he realized that it needed to shift. So in 2014, when we know all that stuff was going on with the Clippers coach and all that, he realized that it needed to be a culture shift, right? And so David Stern was as it says here, very aggressive about letting owners know that he thought minority leadership in the league was very important. And so they talk about it didn't happen overnight. They talk about different relationships between the owners and players, which is really important here. And they really focus on, again, that cultural shift, right?
Yes.
So they really look at the NBA, NFL, two big sports, obviously, but what is the main difference? And they keep talking about that culture in that relationship between owners
That's
and players.
a great point.
Yeah. So, that's you bring up a good point, because I think one difference you have between the NBA and the NFL, let's say you take, someone who's quote unquote the best player in the NFL, you could take them to some team, the worst team. That team may not change around. If it's the same roster, same coach, it may not change around that much in a year. If you take, if you take anybody, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, any of the top three, NBA guys, and put them on a, quote unquote, a team that wasn't so well, that whole team's going to change around the year. Just even
Pivotal.
like when LeBron James, everyone didn't like the move. I didn't like it, but he went to Miami. That changed their whole franchise, and he even went toe-to-toe with the owner. He said, listen, the owner was going to deal me. I wasn't going to wait for that. I'm going to decide my own destiny. And it's different with the NBA. In basketball, it's less players on the court.
Yep.
That's
A
true.
guy plays, both sides of the ball. He's always on the field, versus on football, he plays 1/3 of the field. He's not playing special teams or defense. He may just play offense. You have a little more control of what's going on, and your face is always, always being shown. In football, you have a helmet on. Your face is always being shown. You're always in the spotlight. So it's hard for people that's watching the game to ignore that.
Right.
So there's 2 points. First being what Derek said. Representation is key, but it's easier to penetrate when the field is more, close settings. All right, sure. So there's 12 players to 15 tops on a basketball team.
Yeah.
You have more of an influence. Plus, you score a lot more. The dynamics are different. Each player has their own autonomous relationship to actually apply pressure to make this team good. NFL now being a lot of guys have to work hand in hand and make this work. Without a center, the ball don't get snapped. While the QB, wide receivers don't touch the ball. So there's a lot of drops in the dynamics. Second, the NBA, the whole culture shift came from the guys behind the culture. He said, look, we have to back it. For this change to happen, we have to implement it. We have to stand by it. We have to represent it. We have to make the change. In the NFL, that's not the same.
True.
Yeah, for example, the owner of the Cowboys, Jerry Jones, he said, man, if any of my players kneel, they're off the team.
Yeah.
Why didn't everyone kneel? Because, they had I feel like that was a perfect time for them to make a stand. It was like,
The entire organization should have.
We don't work for you and take orders. Like, you can't fire all of us. We're the team. Like, you don't think you're above the team and we're just all replaceable. So I think that was a point where they, you see some teams, they supported other teams, guys are scared, and I feel like it was perfect job for people who are superstars and things like that, who could, take a stand, because
too many people in bed.
All your top people, it's not going to happen.
Too many people in bed with other people.
Yeah.
A lot of money, a lot of livelihoods, a lot of backdoor deals being made, and you don't want to brush shoulders with the wrong folks. And then I can see that. Moral to the story is the culture has to be supported by the people who are actually in power: owners, GMs, OCs, defensive coordinators, and then this needs to come from a culture as a whole. Everyone needs to be on board with this.
Right. And I think to that point, as we start to wrap up here as well, I think to that point, though, that is another difference between NFL and NBA. Last year, we're in 2022, but in 2020, right, I remember right after, I don't know if remember if it was Ahmaud Arbery or George Floyd. I think it was right after George Floyd,
Yes.
where literally it was a game supposed to be played, and everyone was like, nope, we're not
The Clippers,
playing
right?
this game.
Exactly. The Clippers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, the Clippers started, and literally every single person, including the coaches, were like, okay, so where do we
We're
go
on
from
board
here?
with it, yeah.
And guess what? The NBA followed suit. Baseball followed suit.
Yeah.
Everything stopped.
Yes.
Right? Everything stopped.
Yep.
And so I think that was the difference, because the NBA, they led that charge
Right.
with that one game.
They did.
The one game.
They
And that
did.
changed so many things moving forward.
I think to your point, I mean, you talked about this culture, right? But you have the largest basketball player, like the stars. LeBron James is very vocal.
Yes.
You know what I mean? He came out with, what was the shut up and dribble comment that someone told him to do. But, you know, they've been very vocal and consistent in terms of that message, right?
Yes.
You see it in terms of how they come out, you know, the clothes that they're wearing.
I can't breathe. Or
and now, you know, the NFL has their little sayings on their their helmets and things like that. But the culture does not support that. So I think that's a really great point in terms of the difference between the two. You know, I don't know what's going to take to change. No. I'm very interested in looking at how this plays out. But, you know, we had an NFL halftime show during the Super Bowl that
was magical.
It was magical. People have come out and said, okay, well, all this stuff has been happening, but now we got this hip hop, you know, halftime show, so we forget about everything. Right. You know, we'd be having...
It's going back to the performative, and we'll
just,
you know, see where that goes.
Exactly. Yeah. So Eminem did kneel during,
he did kneel. I appreciated that.
His performance.
They told him not to, and he did anyways.
Yeah, look, you can't be mediated the whole time. This needs to be unedited, needs to be raw, needs to be shown, it needs to be represented, and it has to happen all the time because you got to think about it. You have to erase a lot of layers for a lot of years of this. A lot of it.
Systemic.
Yes.
It is.
Very systemic.
And systems are hard to change.
Yes.
You know? So
I love this conversation.
Right?
And I love the fact that you guys came on, and I appreciate you guys for sure.
Thanks for having us.
So, but before we wrap up, 2 things. Gym of the day, and then drop your socials and what you do now.
How people can find you.
Yes.
Okay. My gym of the day. I think this applies for anything in life. Even the topic that we were talking about. And I know you just may have mentioned it too, that be consistent. So, and anything that you want to happen, change or anything, it has to be consistent. People hated Martin Luther King. Like, he was the most hated man on earth. He was consistent with what he was doing.
True.
Now, you know, people, you know, we have a day for him when you look back and it's now, but he was consistent. You know, he was consistent with his message, consistent with his vision, and the fight that he fought that we're still fighting today. You know, so we talk about certain things, changes that need to be made. It has to be consistency. It can't just be, hey, you know, this happened and everyone just turn their head and forget about it. It has to be consistent. It has to be consistent steps working to get things to change. And once they change, it has to be consistent to keep certain things in there, you know?
Right.
So.
And to follow with that, I'll have a quote from Frederick Douglass, since it's Black History Month. Come on now. So it says, "Liberty is meaningless where the right to utter one's thoughts and opinions have ceased to exist." So I say to folks, don't miss your moment. If you have a chance to make this space yours, make it yours. Never just succumb to the frame that they placed. Always make your moment, because then, like Coach Flores, you'll make changes even years from now. So why not take it?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, no, absolutely love it.
Awesome.
So where can we find you guys on social media? If you want to. No pressure.
Shout out on the IG, official Next Generation. Come support the non-for-profit. We do a lot for the community.
Real quick.
You gotta tell us about it.
I mean, look, I got all night for this. You
got 30 seconds.
Right. All right, look, so not-for-profit. We help out inner city schools, folks in need. It doesn't matter race, creed, and we have drives. We have things going on as far as the kids backpack giveaways.
Oh, nice.
Look us up. We got a Facebook. Officially, Next Generation, hit me up. We're always here.
What was the IG?
Officially Next Generation.
Oh, officially Next Generation. Okay.
Both of them.
All right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I have DBU on the net, Derek Brim University. I train a lot of the defensive backs around here. Mentor these guys, coach them up, help them get off to college, and just
like 7 kids now? Scholarships, several of them.
Yeah, several kids with some scholarships.
Okay.
You know,
My boy doing his thing.
They put in the work. I just try to lead them.
Yeah, look, he doing his thing out here.
Sometimes I'm the person behind the camera too.
Absolutely.
Okay, sis.
All right, sis.
You know,
Okay,
gotta
sis.
support.
Shout
Always.
out, sis.
Yep.
Right? Well, thank y'all both for coming on. We appreciate y'all.
Thanks for having
Keep
us.
doing your thing.
Yeah.
We're gonna look y'all up and support y'all too.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
Always.
Thank you.
another
God bless.
episode.
Another episode.
We'll see y'all next week.
Next week.
Peace.